what exactly are the limits that can be placed on an Article 5 convention, what's called? I mean, concrete. Can you tell me, what 5 concrete things can you tell me, bullet points are right there, not it's safe. What 5 things can you tell me that will keep it from becoming a runaway convention?
Go ahead, Rob.
We have 300 years of convention law, convention practices, and also confirmation of those sorts of practices by the courts. And what limits, the way to think about a convention is it's a diplomatic meeting of the states. It's like the Geneva Convention, where a group of sovereignties get together and they negotiate. Now, they're first limited by the scope of the job they're given. In other words, if they're told to talk about term limits, they don't have power to talk about balanced budget amendment. So that's one limitation. The second limitation is that they are limited by the instructions given from their bosses back home. Each state legislature designates its commissioners. Those commissioners are empowered by a document called a commission, which limits their power, and they're also given ancillary instructions, and those instructions can be reinforced back home. Some states, even Indiana is notable, we've even passed legislation saying if somebody violates his oath and discusses something that's not within his commission or takes an action at the convention that is not within his commission, he can be prosecuted legally. Then in addition to that, the Congress has to take any validly proposed amendment and decide on a mode of ratification. That is to say, Congress has to decide whether this amendment is going to be sent to the state legislatures or to state conventions for ratification. We've used both methods. Now, Congress is an institutional rival to the Convention for Proposing Amendments. Congress is not the friend of the Convention for Proposing Amendments. And so if there's a colorable basis for saying, hey, look, this is outside the convention's power, we're not going to designate a mode of ratification, there's a good chance that Congress will do that. That may very well end up in the courts, of course. If by some miracle the Congress nevertheless decided, well, we really like this amendment even though it's outside the convention power, and they then decide to send it to the states, you've just listened to Mark Meckler give you the math, You've got you need 30 states to approve. If the legislature is the entity that's going to either approve or disapprove, as has been the case for almost all amendments, one house of the legislature can block that. You ask yourself, what really is the likelihood of the legislatures, 38 legislatures or even 38 conventions, approving amendments that they don't want, they didn't send their people to the convention to approve? I mean, what really is the likelihood of that? I think essentially zero. And then, of course, any invalidly approved amendment can be disregarded by the courts, any state, any agency. Those people who oppose a convention for their reasons often offer the possibility of state nullification as an alternative. Well, state nullification is arguable constitutionally and certainly impractical because there's just too much stuff to nullify. But let me suggest that if you did have an amendment that was not valid, not only would no state have to ratify it, but any state could freely nullify it. So again, check after check after check, backup after backup after backup. You're talking about a risk here that approaches zero. If we can't take that kind of insignificant risk, then we're not really worthy of the liberty that the founders bequeathed to us.
Washington, D.C. isn't the solution, it's the problem. Liberty is being assaulted at every turn, while Congress buries us in debt. The Founding Fathers knew this might happen. Article 5 of the Constitution gives the states the power to stop a runaway federal government. A convention of states to amend the Constitution. It's the only solution as big as the problem. It's time to stand up, speak up, and show up. Join us at conventionofstates.com.